Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens, a slightly different show for you all today. We're basically doing the usual thing, talk about the news because there is some key stories in that, and then we're going to move on to a bit of discussion from last night because I have not much of the game. Obviously the game happened, but more in terms of like the Daniel Farke conversations about new signings, etc. Really interesting part, I'm hoping that you will really enjoy. So we'll get onto that, but let's start with the news. But before we do that, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively helps the channel and massively helps me in my aim to hit 1,000 subscribers by the 1st of September, the end of the transfer window, which was my aim. So if you could do that and drop a subscription, that would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, let's start with the news before we get into the discussion from last night. So, Tanaka was confirmed last night that he is going to miss the next few games with an MCL injury. He's going to be out for several weeks. It's the same injury, annoyingly, that Ethan Ampadu has also got. They've both got MCLs. It's not ACLs. That would be really bad. But an MCL is an annoying injury to obviously have. And yeah, this one really worries me, actually, because not only does this mean that Grev's going to have to start in the midfield, because we haven't really got anyone else in midfield with Ampadu down. It's going to have to be Ampadu, Longstaff and Stack. Like it's the only way you can go in the midfield. But not just that. Even when I look at that midfield and what that midfield provides Leeds United, my worry is that we haven't got anybody that sort of that can mirror the profile of an Ao Tanaka. We haven't got anybody who can offer the creativity going forward that Tanaka can do. Also require the defensive support that Tanaka can offer, and also require the physical attributes to deal with the midfield three of potentially Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, or whoever plays, because obviously they've got a few injuries themselves potentially. So that really worries me, to be honest, because as I said, we just haven't got a mirrored profile in the lineup, in my opinion. And he's a very unique profile because his ability to do everything and his ability to add creativity on top of that. Like you could throw Longstaff in there, which is obviously what he's going to do. But even if you throw Longstaff in there, he's not as good a footballer, and he hasn't got, for me, the football IQ that an Ao Tanaka does possess. Yes, I think he has the physical attributes and potentially even an excess of physical attributes on Ao Tanaka, but does he have the sort of creativity that obviously Tanaka sort of has and provides this Leeds United team? And when you take more creativity out of this team, where I think is a huge problem anyway, creativity, I do think that is going to be a massive problem for us in the Newcastle game, to be honest. So this is a bad one. This is not a good story at all. The only saving grace is, obviously, the Newcastle game is this weekend, but after this weekend, it will be basically shut the transfer window immediately afterwards, which on the 1st of September. And then, of course, it's not till, I think, the 13th of September that we play Fulham. So either Tanaka will be back for that game, or I would expect that a new signing will play in that role, because we are going to sign another attacking body who potentially could mirror Tanaka's attributes slightly in that midfield, and therefore obviously could play in that Fulham game. So I do think we'll only be out without this profile for one potential game, but still, just an annoying injury. I said the exact same with Ampadu. Obviously, we had Grevers who can sort of replace his attributes, or Longstaff, or you could put Stack in there and put Longstaff in Stack's role, and you could sort of get away with it. I don't think we saw that against Arsenal, but I think you can do. Tanaka's a different story for me. That's going to be a really, really massive blow for us, because he was our best player against Everton, and I thought he did, of all the players, he did okay against Arsenal. Not great, but okay. Anyway, that is the news regarding Tanaka. There's also been a story as well today that Leeds United have gone in for Timo Werner. But he's rejected the move, so I don't want to cover it in too much. That is the story. Would Timo Werner have worked for Leeds United? Not for me. I don't like him up front. He's always been better for the left-hand side. We've got tons of left wingers. We've just loaned out Ramazani. Don't understand this one, to be honest. It's the same with the thing I said with Solomon. Don't get why we'd want to bring in Werner. I don't understand that. But that is another story for you today. If you were interested in Werner coming, unfortunately, that isn't going to happen. He has rejected the move. Anyway, this is where I wanted the show to get to. And it's around Daniel Farke. I'll start this debate because I'm going to give some points to the opposites of what I'm going to say. So I wanted to start this debate of where I'm at currently. And I wanted to take it all the way back to last season. Not after the playoff final, because after the playoff final, my personal opinion at that moment was we should keep with Daniel Farke. He's got 90 points. We've also just seen what Chris Wilder has been recently, which I think sort of amplifies the decision that the 49ers made at that time, where what Chris Wilder got 92 points. He gets the sack. Ruben Sellers has played 3 games, lost them all. So I think there's context behind this. But I want to start this debate by saying last season, I can't remember exactly which game. I think it was potentially the Blackburn away game. For me, the only game we probably should have lost last year in terms of how good we were compared to the opposition. I thought they were much the better side. I went Daniel Farke out. That was my stance at that moment in time. However, I'm a big boy and I can accept when I was wrong. And I was completely wrong on that opinion because he got us 100 points and he got us promotion, which I don't care what anybody says, that was the aim last year. 100 points, promotion, that was fantastic. He completely excelled in the role of getting Leeds United promoted last year. That is what he did. That is a fact. As I said, I am not Daniel Farke's biggest sort of fanboy in the world. That is not my stance. It never has been, never will be. I think he's got tactical flaws in his game. I've talked about this. His subs are not at the right times a lot of the time, in my opinion. I think some of his profiling on certain players is not right. I think some of his team selections are not right. And I think some of the ways he sets us up in games are not right. I've talked about this before. However, I was wrong last season to say that because he did get us promotion and that was the aim at that moment in time. Now we skip, so then he gets us promoted, as we know he did, getting 100 points, most goals scored, a pretty good defence, besides Meslier, which I think was probably a potential con for Daniel Farke. But then he gets promoted, the 49ers give him over £100 million, and we expect some more investment to come in, so potentially looking at 130 million, which is I think where the spend's going to be. Straight into a manager. Then in our first game, we play against Everton. For me, Daniel Farke does a really good job with a team that lacks creativity in the final third, doesn't have the sort of, with a front three of Perrault, James, and Nonto, for me, isn't a strong enough front three. We managed to get a win over the line when I think the way we were set up tactically, in terms of the way we pressed and everything like that, was, by the way, the press in that game was fantastic, and I said it after the game. And I think he got it bang on. I think he actually schooled Moyes on the touchline, which no one seems to mention. And I think, as I said, so that was a fantastic managerial point, sort of display, in my opinion, in the first game this season. And also, he got 3 points in it, which is another massive sort of string in his bow as such. Then we move on to the next game, obviously Arsenal. I think we all can agree, looking back, even I think the most staunch Daniel Farke in us can say he made a number of errors in that game. He shouldn't have picked Perrault up front. It should have been Nemecha. It wasn't the game for Perrault. There was so many long balls going into him. As I said, that wasn't the right profile of striker to pick for that individual game. There was loads of physical battles, and Perrault wasn't ready for that. That was the wrong pick. I think the other thing he probably did wrong is he should have put Stack as the holding midfield player, and then he should have had Longstaff and Tanaka at the time, who obviously was fit for the Arsenal game, as his two sort of going backward and forward eights. Although having watched box-to-box eights, Longstaff yesterday, I think you could question that decision. I also think potentially not playing Biol in the Arsenal game was a mistake, especially with the performance levels we saw from Pascal Struijk. So we're looking at it now. Promotion, fantastic. Credit in the bank because of a promotion, 100%. Everton, fantastic. Arsenal, not so good. I think that's where everybody's at. I don't think this is an unpopular opinion. I think that's where we're at. Then we move on to the Sheffield Wednesday game last night. Now, the Sheffield Wednesday game last night, for me, yes, Daniel Farke made mistakes. However, if we're being honest with ourselves, we lost the game last night for one main reason. The players were not up for that game. That is the fact. We have seen this 100 million times in cup competitions with different teams. That team playing at full whack with me in charge should beat that Sheffield Wednesday team. That's how much of an upset that was. So yes, you can blame the manager all you want, but if you think the team that we put out last night wasn't capable of beating that Sheffield Wednesday team without any tactical instructions, without any sort of, even plays in the wrong positions, Byram at centre-back, for example, would have worked last night. That's how bad that team is. And that's nothing against Sheffield Wednesday, because they're in an absolute mess. And it's it's horrible what's happening to that club, if we're being totally honest. I know it's a rivalry and I get that, but there's certain things that are bigger than football, and people not being paid is a joke. So Chansiri needs to sort that out, and that's another debate for another day. But what last night was down to the fact that we weren't up for the game. We thought we could just turn up to the game and roll them 3-0 over. And people are going to say, Scott, that's embarrassing from the players to have that sort of mentality, which we can discuss. Another thing they're going to say is, well, the manager should put that into the team so that doesn't happen. That's all good, but that isn't a realistic perfect world scenario. It isn't. What we saw in the Everton game compared to the Sheffield Wednesday game is night and day, and it was always going to be like that, because we knew against Everton we had to give it everything we had to try get a win. Last night we could genuinely have played at 60% and still won that game, and the players played at 40%, and we ended up getting beat, and that's what happened. That is the truth of it. So to blame all that on Daniel Farke is a joke, in my opinion. It's a total joke. Because as I said, me, you, anyone, you could have picked out the streets without a manager. If you pick them players, they should beat that Wednesday team. Because it's a team full of 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds who've barely even kicked a ball in the professional game in their life. That doesn't mean, by the way, that they're all rubbish and the new signings are all crap. That is not what I'm saying, but that is what happens. But we have seen this over and over again with a number of teams. England have played San Marino before and won like 2-0, and people will go, yeah, but they won. But that is an absolutely howling result in comparison to the San Marino team compared to the England national team. But they do that because it's so easy, they take the foot off the gas. And we took our foot off the gas from day dot, from the first kick of the first blow of the whistle yesterday. And that's why we lost the game. And as I said, you can blame Daniel Farke all you want. But for me, what we've got in our fan base right now is we've got a lot of people who have been hidden away for a while, who are closet Daniel Farke haters. That's what they are. And they are so obsessed with Daniel Farke getting sacked. But they know when we're winning the league, they can't say anything because it's ridiculous. And now they cannot wait to jump on his back for any old result. Because these results have happened for years and they will continue to happen. We had it with Bielsa, where we lost 3-0 to Crawley Town. I've seen it with England countless times. Sunderland had it last night. This happens. This is what happens because you take your foot off the gas, you think it's easy, and you end up getting rolled. And that's what we did. And yes, we didn't deserve to win unless we had loads of chances and all that. But that is the truth of it. We didn't give. Our players came off that pitch yesterday and they hadn't given 100%. Because if they had, we would have won the game. And I get it, because I'll give you an example outside of football. I used to work at a company who used to make a product. I won't go into the product as such because it didn't really matter. And the way that used to, and basically, we used to have clients, as you do, that we would sell this product to. If we messed up an order, and the company messed up an order, what used to happen is, the next order that used to come in, we used to put a green ticker on to make sure that order was definitely done 100%. And people double, triple checked it to make sure it was done to the maximum of their ability and make sure there was no mess ups. We've already messed up one order. We don't want to mess another order up. And somebody in the crowd said, or someone in the debate that we're having about having this green sticker on said, we shouldn't do that. We should always do 100%. And we shouldn't be making these mistakes anyway. So we don't actually need a green sticker because we should always be at a certain level. That is true, and he's right, but we don't live in a perfect world. If we lived in a perfect world, then yes, every single person would always give 100%, and all that would be the case. That isn't reality. So that's why, in this situation, the green sticker was a really, really good idea, because it meant this one, just make sure you do the extra checks and make sure you do 100%. You should do that with every order, but let's make sure with this one, because we cannot mess this one up. And that is the same with Leeds United. We last night, we didn't have a green sticker on that game, that in this scenario, because we thought we could just go in there, as I said, and play 50% and just get the game over the line. And then we found ourselves in a situation where we went 1-0 down, and you saw the performance level increase when we went 1-0 down, because everybody knew at that point, damn, we're actually in a game here. And by that point, it was too late, and we couldn't then score 2 goals because we missed a load of chances. Obviously, we scored the one with Bogle, who was actually really good when he came on, but we couldn't get it over the line. But as I said, to blame all that on Daniel Farke, for me, is a joke. It's just a joke. And it's because we've got so many people who are obsessed with the manager in this fan base, probably me included at times, that they can't wait to attack the manager. When, in reality, we had a load of stinking performances last night. I actually thought the left-hand side, for the record, of Harrison and Okafor was miles better than the right-hand side until we changed it, until we brought Bogle and Nonto on the right-hand side. Aronson and Byram did nothing in terms of creativity, and Aronson missed a few chances, obviously, in the first half. The other thing with Daniel Farke that I don't like, that's currently going on, is that he isn't going to get sacked right now. That isn't going to happen. Even if we get beat badly by Newcastle, he will not get sacked. So it's a completely negative, wasted argument to be going on about the manager right now. Our next 5 games, by the way, we have Newcastle at home at the weekend. We've got Fulham away. Then we've got Wolves away. Then we've got Bournemouth at home. Then we've got Spurs at home. That's our next 5. And then it's an international break. The absolute earliest the manager will go is that international break. And he would have to lose, I think, every single game comprehensively for that to happen. If that does happen, and we get done 4-0 by, say, 4-0 by Newcastle at the weekend, we get comfortably beaten by Fulham, comfortably beaten by Wolves, comfortably beaten by Bournemouth, and then comfortably beaten by Spurs, I might even be Farke out at that point. Again, it's already been at him out once. But I might be in that situation. But that is the absolute earliest he will go. And the other thing that, the reason I don't like this, and the reason I wanted to sort of make a whole part about this Daniel Farke situation is, it brings negativity to the club that we do not need, because we are in an absolute dogfight this year. And if anyone doesn't think that, they're mad. We are in an absolute dogfight. And we will be until a few years' time, until we've stabilised in this league, if we can stay up. When I look at other teams that we're competing against, and I'll use West Ham as an example. West Ham have a better, like it or lump it, West Ham have a better starting 11 than we do. They do. The reason they might go down right now, when you're looking at it, is because their disconnect between the fans, the club, and the team is so massive, and the fans hate the club so much, and there's so much booing and negativity that might take them down. And we have seen this countless times when teams massively underperform because the unity between the fans, the club, and the players isn't there. And it massively affects the team on the pitch. And if we're going to stay up this year, we've got to not do that. Because if we get in those situations where we're being really negative, and I'm not saying everyone has to be a happy clapper, because I get there's certain situations, but if we do that and we're really negative, we will go down because we need the unity. That is the strength that we have to use. I'm telling you, we will go down. So I get you're annoyed with the manager, and I get you might even want him out, but it's such a wasted argument right now, and it creates so much negativity. It's almost a wasted bit of breath. And in fact, all you're doing is damaging the team you so desperately want to win. That's my opinion on it. So all I'd say is, fine, you might want the manager out, and you might have your reasons, and that might be that might come to fruition. But we are never going to sack the 49ers are never, ever, ever in a million years going to sack the manager now. So stop talking about it. Focus on the next game, and let's see if we can put on a really good show and beat Newcastle. Because that is the way we're going to stay up. It's going to be around unity, and it's going to be around backing the team every single game, and the home sport being fantastic. Because even if you look at the teams that have stayed up recently, Nottingham Forest, when they stayed up, stuck with Steve Cooper. And all right, we don't think he's a good coach, but the unity that he had with the fans kept them in the league, in my opinion. That, and they obviously pulled up together results at the end. Then they ended up going. He ended up getting sacked the year after, which might happen with Daniel Farke, by the way. Brentford, Thomas Frank, obviously we know he's a good coach anyway, but he stayed at Brentford, obviously the first year, and they stayed in the league. Fulham, Marco Silva, again, still there as a manager now. So if Farke gets sacked, having just spent 120 million on a squad, by the way, our chance of getting relegated has just gone down dramatically, because it means we're doing poorly, or we won't be sacked. So I am not saying that everybody has to be a happy clapper and you have to be happy with the transfer window, because I'm not fully happy with the transfer window, and you have to be happy with Daniel Farke and his tactics and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying right now, park the conversation, because it ain't going to happen, and all it is doing is damaging our chances of actually staying in this league, which we also desperately want to do. That's my opinion on it. And as I said, before I made this video, I wanted to look at different scenarios and sort of different points of view, because that was my take, probably up to another ante last night, that I knew that what this would cause, which is why I so desperately didn't want to see the stuff with DCL and all that sort of stuff. But we'll get on to DCL in a minute. But that's what I'll say about last night, and what I'll say about the Daniel Farke conversation. Could he be sacked at some point this year? 100%. Do I have question marks over him? 100%. Is he going to be sacked right now? And is it a wasted conversation? 100%. It is. It's a wasted conversation. And all it is doing is damaging the club that you so desperately want to win. At least a lot of I think you do. Because if you're more obsessed with the manager than the club, then we're not probably on the same wavelength. So yeah, that is my feeling around Daniel Farke. We've just got to, even though we can question his tactics, and I'm not saying don't question it. I'm saying question it all you want. I'm just saying the conversation about him booing him and getting him sacked and all that, it's just a wasted conversation, because it ain't going to happen at the moment. Especially after the stuff that we've had last year, and obviously the start that we've made this year in terms of beating Everton. Because at the start of the year, let's be honest, everybody said, What if someone said to you, what do you want from the Leeds this season? What's your name? Unless we're on different wavelengths completely, pretty much every Leeds fan saying, finish 17th, stay in the league. That is all we're saying. No one was saying, have a great cup run, don't avoid embarrassing cup defeats. No one was saying that. Everyone was just saying, stay in the league. As I said, doesn't mean last night were acceptable, but I talked about reasons for that. I feel like at least I gave you points, even if you disagree. So yeah, that is my current take on Daniel Farke, really. Anyway, let's move on to another topic, and let's talk about DCL, because DCL is in a very different category. And I'll tell you why, for me, DCL is a very different category. Because I've seen a lot of negativity around DCL, and that's fine, because he did miss 3 really good chances. However, my opinion on DCL's performance last night, and again, don't want to be happy clapper, but this is where I'm at. I was quietly optimistic about what I saw last night. I was. I think we can work with what I saw last night. I think we can work with that. I do think we can work with it. One thing that we've struggled at this year, and I've talked about it already, is that we've struggled, for me, with creativity. That has been a key problem for Leeds United. But creativity is not just about having service for your striker. It's about your striker's movement. That is a massive, massive thing in terms of creativity. You've got actual players being able to see the pass when the player makes the move and pick the ball and pick the pass through. And potentially we need some players like that, the likes of a Buonanotte, an El Canus, a Nico Gonzalez, a Bakwa. We need that sort of a player like that who can see DCL's movement. That is what we need. But in the flip side, we also need a striker who's going to make good runs. Perrault, his movement, in my opinion, is awful. It really is awful. And I think we saw instantaneously yesterday when DCL came on, not just his moves for the chances he created, but he made a lovely move on the left-hand side and managed to get a ball into the box. And I thought, we can work with this. That's Premier League level movement. And we haven't got that in the sort of roster at the moment at Leeds United. So, yes, he missed some big chances. But I'm quietly optimistic, actually, from someone who actually didn't want the sign of DCL, that I saw a different level of standard when he came on the pitch. And he will not keep missing chances like that. That won't happen. Because his conversion rate, all right, DCL, for the record, isn't a brilliantly clear cut-in finisher. He isn't someone who's really silky and someone who is really clinical. That isn't what he is. I can tell you that for free. However, on the flip side to that, his movement is exceptional. And we saw that last night. And I think, as I said, creativity is built in 2 manners. It's not just built with having creative players in behind the striker to create something for the striker. It's also about the striker's movement. That is creation in itself. And what we saw from DCL last night is creation in a different form. And we do not get that with Perrault. And Perrault might be even a better striker of the ball than DCL. But it's no good being a good finisher if you never get yourself in the position to finish. And we know Perrault doesn't do that. Perrault's someone who likes to sort of plays up front, drop into the midfield, link the play, and then never be anywhere for the finish. That is what he is. DCL is completely different. And he will make really good runs consistently for Leeds United. He has got Premier League level movement, in my opinion, having watched him last night. And he will get a lot of chances because his movement is that good. And yes, I'm not saying he'll convert everything, but I am saying he'll get a lot of chances. So I think that's something to bear in mind with DCL. Because, as I said, he did miss chances yesterday and his penalty were awful and all that is all true. But that sort of movement I was quietly optimistic. I thought, actually, we can work with that. I don't know. Again, this is something I'm interested with you guys with. Do you agree on anything? Do you agree with Daniel Farke? Do you agree on DCL? I am really interested because maybe I'm misshooting here. Funny enough, like Calvert-Lewin did yesterday. No pun intended. So yeah, I think we can work with DCL. I really think there's something there, which I'm quietly optimistic about, to be honest. He's just got to keep him fit now. It's going to be a huge one for us, keeping him fit, because he will score goals with movement like that. Also, as well, with DCL, I knew I was missing something, that's why I just checked my notes. I've seen a lot of comparisons to Patrick Bamford. He's nothing like Patrick Bamford, people. Patrick Bamford is a bad finisher, as we know. But not just that. For me, he's lackadaisical. He's quite lackadaisical on the ball. He's a bit clunky. He don't move that well. He's not as strong as DCL. He's not as powerful as DCL. He's not as quick as DCL. He don't run the channels as well as DCL. I'm not saying DCL's this unbelievable striker. As I said, I didn't even want DCL at the club. But comparing him to Bamford is so wrong. Like, Bamford, a lot of the time, looks like he's playing in slow motion. Bamford, when he gets the chance to shoot, sometimes he takes like 10 seconds to shoot, and you're like, I'm watching slow motion here. Get your shot away, because he's very lethargical in the way he moves. DCL's not that at all. He's much cleaner in the way he moves. His movement's much better, in my opinion. So he's not, for me, he's not like Bamford at all. His physical attributes are so much better than Bamford's. It's ridiculous. As I said, he's stronger, he's quicker, he's more powerful, he's taller. He's better in the air. He's got a better jump than Bamford. So I think, as I said, I think there's something there we can work with. And I actually thought Okafor looked okay as well on the left-hand side, and a really poor performance from everybody. I thought, as I said, the left-hand side was much better than the right-hand side until Gnonto and Bogle came on. Because if you are looking for a negative on Farke, when the way Gnonto and Bogle played with each other, why he then took Okafor off and moved Gnonto on the left and put James on the right, which then killed the right-hand side, I'll never know. As I said, he's not faultless. I'm just saying that I would hope that I could manage that Leeds United team yesterday to beat that Sheffield Wednesday team. So some has to go down to the players for that reason, doesn't it? Anyway, thanks all for watching as always. Bit of a different video today. Let me know what you think of it. Do you like this style? Do you agree with anything I said? Because as I said, this one for me is massive on the comments. I've done a lot of research before making this video into other people's opinions on these matters to come to my solution and sort of maybe tone me down a bit from where I was. But yeah, I was just interested to see how much the Daniel Farke movement was moved to out last night. Anyway, thanks all for watching, and I will catch you all later, everybody. Bye for now.